Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Shepard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. We are going to talk about religion versus spirituality today, Miss Dana.
Ooh.
So who's with me is my wife, Dana. I'm sure if you listen to any podcast, she's been here with me for a little while, right? The beginning. Yeah. This is a topic that crosses my desk or whatever all the time. It's because of what I do. And so I want to go into the difference between religion and spirituality to get some clarity, but without it being a challenge for those that may say, well, it's this way or that way. This is just my perspective. And a little bit of background here. I was raised in a very strict religious home. My father was an elder. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I was actually baptized around the age of 13, made these commitments at that age about my faith.
You mean before you could really make that decision on your own?
Now I look at that and go, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Or maybe those in control.
And what I want to talk about is I've had a connection with both. And I'm not saying all religions are exactly the same or everyone that's spiritual is the same. These are just some topics here that I want to cover to let people know the differences. But in the community I was raised, you associate with people that were part of the faith. You were told how to dress. The community was very strong. We actually preached, door to door.
You as a child?
Yes.
Yeah. How was that for you?
And hence I'm still, talking to people to today. You weren't raised in any faith, any religious faith.
When I was born, I was baptized Catholic.
Okay. So very early.
When I was a baby, I was baptized into the Catholic religion. So.
And for them, Catholicism, it's about, baptizing a child in case they die, that they've been blessed by a priest. Saved. No sarcasm here, okay?
No. I'm being very serious.
You are. So all of these faiths have tradition and things like that. So that's what we're going to talk about both. But, we're in the U.S. and we're supposed to have freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. And we are asked often, when you're going to a hospital, if you're going to have surgery, they ask you your faith because they want to know and respect those types of things. I know that when someone's getting ready to cross over, there's some connections to fear about passing because of their belief system. So it's huge. And even today, we know people going to the Supreme Court because of their faith and belief system. And in our politics these days, there is so much around the freedom of religion versus the freedom of someone's body. This is a big controversy. So I certainly don't want to battle with all this, but I certainly want to give a perspective for both and how it has affected my livelihood, because you and I have had people that are of a strong religious faith kind of not be kind to us online or certain aspects, even when we're doing, Facebook Lives and things like that. Mm-hmm. So people are really strong about what they believe. Mm-hmm. When I was around the age of 22, I was basically kicked out of the church because of some choices.
What do they call it? What's the word?
Disfellowshipped. In some faiths, it's excommunicated, things like that. But the belief is that everyone I knew growing up, including parents, cousins, everybody, I was no longer allowed to ever talk to them again. And it really changed my whole take on religion because they sided with my husband.
It's like shunning them, right?
Mm-hmm, so absolutely.
Like we've seen movies where the whole community basically, literally and figuratively, turns their back on you.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened to you, right?
Yeah. And, I made a choice. So I honor that that's their faith and that's what they stick by. For me, it just didn't, as we say in our community, it didn't resonate. I just knew. And even though I didn't understand the complete, because my world was pretty small, I didn't understand why my gut said I can't do it like this anymore and walked away. Ended up almost homeless, just a lot of challenges. But now I look back and see that as I'm going to use that as a gift to take me on another path. And when I went on another path, I just realized I was more open-minded I didn't consider myself spiritual. I didn't even have that term in my radar. It was more open-minded. I just wanted to understand. I wanted to see a bigger picture. I wanted to be more accepting of others because I was raised never to accept anyone else's belief. Ours was the truth, and that was it.
So growing up, you weren't even allowed to associate or talk to people that were not part of
the faith,
as in a friendship or anything more than a hello, or you were kind to people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing, they were open to all walks of life. So whatever race you were, but if you were not part of that religion, I was not allowed to stay over, have camping trips, school functions, no holiday events.
Not even eat lunch with them, right?
You could eat lunch. Absolutely. There was that part of it, but we hung out with the people that were still of our faith. We didn't really include other people.
So that you had a JW table.
A JW. little
in the
corner.
lunchroom.
Yeah. That's normally what you did if you didn't have people of the same faith. We were never considered rude, but you just, we were not allowed to do sports or go out for school activities or be more involved in school. Pretty much you received your education and then you were part of the organization and preached and stayed with people. Yeah, and when you don't,
so you weren't inclusive of other people and their belief systems unless you were trying to
recruit them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
And when I lived like that, I just believed that was good. I mean, I didn't see it as a negative.
You were taught that way.
I was taught that way. I didn't look like, I should question this, and that's what's changed. Obviously, over time, is now I question, and in that atmosphere, we didn't question. You just had a strong faith. And that's the difference between religion and spirituality. Even though I know some strong religious people they question a lot, I was not one of them until later.
For me, it was more, I wasn't raised with religion at all. Actually, when I was very tiny, I remember going to mass and kneeling, and my grandma, would take me as a small child to those things. I remember going to weddings, just the once a year or once every 5-year thing that I was included in. But I remember, I think I was the age of 15 or 16, trying to reason why things in my life were the way they were. Right. And this is in past podcasts. If you ever want to go back and listen, my story is in those past podcasts called Dana's Story. But it was my own discovering or trying to reason, which is when I started thinking about reincarnation. And I think you mentioned Shirley MacLaine.
Oh, yeah.
God,
that's the first book years ago. Yeah. I was in my mid-20s.
It was Shirley MacLaine that...
Out on a Limb, if you guys have ever read that, if you're my generation. Yeah, Out on a Limb.
Yeah, that's when I started thinking about, there's other answers out there. There's other things, or there's things out there that can help you understand beyond the traditional.
And there was just a lot of fear brought about in my religion. And that's what we're going to talk about the difference between spirituality and religion, where religion, it's all about an afterlife, what happens when you die. And so there's fear of, what is the goal, the ultimate goal. And so you really stayed focused on that outcome.
Would you say spirituality is kind of that way too? Because you connect with the afterlife.
No, I don't think it's
not
about
the same thing at all.
No, I think there's just a lot of doomsday when it comes to religion. From what I've experienced, from my experience, if you don't do things a certain way. Now, I don't think all religions that way, but for the majority of a belief system, it's
dogmatic.
It's about dogma, about this is how you have to follow.
Or else.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because through this process of religion with my family, we reconnected and did a lot of healing. And then, as you know, recently in the last couple of years, the religion has played another role into
them disconnecting from you
again.
Shunning you again, basically.
And my brothers were never baptized, so they have not had the same experiences because they never, at 13, that sealed my fate, basically, about what the organization can do.
I wonder why your brothers were not.
They chose not to.
But they had some influence over you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just think it's each of us have our own path.
Yeah.
And my brother, that's 8 years younger, just never went down that. He just saw things differently than I did. And, went to, the meetings with my parents. And then at one point that was not his desire. And he didn't marry someone in the religion and things like that. So has taken a very different path. My younger brother, they're both younger, but the other one's 20 years younger, same parents for people that may be listening. Yeah. He never got baptized, but he did end up with someone that is of the faith, and they sort of follow back and forth. So they've had some interesting, so it's sort of three different dimensions of our experiences with the religion. Mm-hmm. I don't think all religions are like this, but there's a lot of similarities to all religions. Mm-hmm. And doing this work, we have people that will have a session and tell me right away, well, I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I am never here to push people to believe in something different. In my program, my classes, I tell people, keep what resonates and throw away the rest, always. They can bring in whatever faith they are. I'm not here to make
That's a metaphor, though, for you can have both, right?
You can have both. Absolutely. Right. I believe that you can combine both religion and spirituality together. Some people really love that tradition, the history of it, those things that come with that belief.
The rituals.
Yeah.
We have people of Christian faith, Jewish faith, atheist, agnostic,
yeah.
Hindu, Buddhist, all of the above. Yeah.
And to me, I'm not there to talk about a faith. I'm there more to talk about some experiences and how to figure out what beliefs work for you and what beliefs don't. So it's all about limiting beliefs.
Okay.
And what we take it. And I think people too, a lot of times they'll come when they've had a significant loss. They really want to understand their faith or religion based on someone that's passed and what's that all about. So this opens up,
new ways of thinking.
Yeah, right? a different door.
Yeah.
And so part of that is explaining my feeling besides religion and spirituality. One of the things that I feel is that you can do both, but what works for you is really the key. I did have both my kids, I took them to different faiths because I wanted them to have experiences because of my upbringing. I didn't want them to not have an opportunity to go to a church or a temple or a synagogue because I wanted them to know that this is out there and I wasn't given that. So I think if you're sort of on the fence, I don't know, or you're in a religion that's really strong, but you're questioning things, go experience other things. It doesn't have to be limited to what you know. Maybe do some studying, ask some people some questions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we grow. One thing that you will learn through religion is there's similarities with all of them.
Yeah.
And we know that because we've studied a lot of religion. They each have a similar story. They just give it different names or different sort of twist on them mm-hmm. for them to fit. And for religion, I was going to talk about this. I had this young woman, she's still a friend. When she was in high school, she called and said, I'm doing this paper and I'm interviewing people that are spiritual versus people that are religious. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And she wanted to know why spirituality worked for me. And when I talked to her, I said, well, it works for me because I get to do my own thinking. I don't feel like I'm in fear and I get to figure out my own process and I don't live a limited sort of viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And she goes, okay. She went to meet with a woman that is very devoted Catholic. And her response was, I don't have to think outside of anything because I know exactly what God expects of me. So I can live my life based on that. And I don't have to even
Don't have to try to figure it out.
So two ways of thinking that satisfied each individual. So when I think about someone that is religious versus someone spiritual, maybe they've done some research and it works for their soul and for their heart and for their purpose in this life. Mm-hmm. And what right do I have to say it's right or wrong?
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about spirituality versus religion, you have a different perspective because you connect with the divine. You have been tested and proven. You have a connection with loved ones on the other side. So if you're speaking just from that viewpoint and you take both spirituality and religion out, what would you say the basis of our existence would be?
I believe we're here to learn unconditional love, how to find ourselves, how to grow to become enlightened. I believe that we're here to listen to that inner guidance and to figure it out for our growth as beings. Spirituality to me doesn't put the fear. Religion has a lot more, as we talk about dogma and fear, about what you do creates the results in your afterlife. What I do, I feel that we're here to learn and grow and we're not perfect. by any means, but we're not judged because of that. Now, on a human level, there's judgment. And I believe there's two types of judgment. One judgment is you're not like me, so I'm going to judge you. The other judgment is when people do things that are wrong, like murder, rape, they should be judged.
Yeah.
So we can't put it all in one category. But with how many thousands and thousands of readings I've done, which still amazes me, it's
60,000.
We're here to learn. We're here to be, to figure stuff out. We're here to go into our inner soul and have knowledge and see things from another perspective. I think when we are learning those rigid beliefs, we don't get to see some stuff outside of us. And I see that so often where people are not really happy, but they are living this life that might be, in my opinion, small, but if it makes them feel good, why should I judge that?
Right.
I think the difference between spirituality too is there isn't one truth and there's more acceptance. When I look at religion, all of them believe it's one truth. All religion believes that theirs is the truth.
They even call it the truth, don't they?
Yeah, the witnesses do. They call it the truth, which is now really interesting as I look back in my life. And I'm honored that I've had those experiences because I do understand religion. I do understand the Bible. I do understand certain faiths that people have and why they, and when we see wars, we see people fighting over their faith or religion.
Didn't you study the Bible
all the time? We had,
3 times a week or something?
Yeah. I look. People go, "Do you know the Bible?" I'm like, pretty well. And you don't forget those things. Those things are still with me, and I am grateful that I've had those experiences that I can carry because people of all different faiths come to see me, and I'm honored for that. And I want to be able to honor their belief and where they come from.
Right.
But spirituality, the difference is they don't believe in one truth, and they accept all.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is I just can't fathom any God that you believe in. People believe in one God, but each religion has their idea of a God that they would say, this is the only way. And I struggle with that, that philosophy.
Yeah. The funny thing is that in my experience, I feel looking at the religions and studying probably a year ago, I was like, I really need to understand the Hindu faith,
which is a really beautiful faith.
And I'm like, I don't understand. I need to understand it more. There's so much, we talk about meditation. We talk about
mindfulness, yoga.
Yoga, Ayurveda, the Vedic astrology. That's all ancient Hindu. And so when we go into those things, I'm like, I need to understand this. Like, is it multiple gods? Is it one God? What is it? And when you really look at it, I'm not going to share that, but when you really look at it, all similar.
It's all similar.
Yeah.
So there's just these little twists and turns that each faith puts on it that takes their story. And if people that are listening are highly religious and they think, no, there's a difference, then study a few of these other faiths to see. I mean, there's just a few, there's changes in them. We even talk about how paganism is so much in the Christian belief and certain faiths that, there are some very traditional, similar, all these similarities.
Different things.
And for you and I, we do celebrate certain Christian holidays, but we don't look at it as a Christian belief. We look at it as, hey, we get together and there's a holiday. Let's make time to be together. Yeah.
And we honor our friends that
absolutely
believe in those religions. So we honor the people and our friends who hold those faiths, which we're great with.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to celebrate them and cheer them on. And we do want to celebrate with them because that's what holds their soul together. That helps their heart. When you were asking about the other side and what I've gotten, I think most of it is that spirituality is bringing in, the purpose of it is that inner awareness, that forever growing. And when I've been teaching this work for over 20 years, way over 20 years, it has changed over time of what I believed originally and what I've experienced up to now. Not a whole lot, but just the fine tuning. And I think people that have done the work like this, it should always change because you are growing and having an experience, which is spirituality. You're having an experience that changes the way you see things. We are here to evolve, in my opinion. We came to this planet to evolve. And with religious beliefs, it's taking traditions from thousands of years ago, or even, if you look at the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons or certain more current beliefs that maybe are 100 years old, they're still taking a doctrine or a belief of that individual and continuing that tradition without allowing questions to be asked. So it's more predestined how you behave, how we do things. And again, the difference between one individual to the next, maybe for some, that is really more valuable.
But it's really interesting how, because I know you identify more as a Buddhist, and as you worked through your belief systems and everything, that, meditation, the Buddhist faith is more of your, I don't even want to call it a faith, it's a belief system, is more your speed, right?
Right.
But when you think about it, they use malas, which are similar to rosaries, for your meditation, and chanting, which Hail Marys, Our Fathers.
Right.
So that is a meditation. It is. Done differently.
The prayers and meditations. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you really think about it. It's still bringing in those elements even into the religious faiths, having those meditations and having
rituals.
Rituals, yeah.
Rituals are so important, I think, for energy and vibration and our commitment. And when you're talking about faith, I think the same thing, but Buddha and Christ, there's some very similar stories that I find fascinating. So if you've never studied the Buddhist belief and you are Christian, when you start looking at some of the stories, even, I think it was Buddha and Christ both went out for 40 days into a place to meditate, basically, or be mindful, whatever you want to call it today. There are so many different parallels. And I think through history, we take these stories and see truths in them. The word you brought up was our faith, the faith in something. And the faith in religion is the difference between spirituality and religion. Faith in religion is you don't question. You have faith. And I think faith is really important in something. To have faith it feels purposeful. Like, I have a purpose with this faith. Spirituality, the faith comes from experiences and validation. And in religion, we're not looking for validation. In spirituality, we do look for validation. Science is more spiritual than it is religion. And I think science is so important, where sometimes religion may not be.
Right. We have a friend who's a doctor who is a creationist, and she's scientific, but does not believe in the science of the history of the earth, which is fascinating.
Well, even talking to my father, when we were talking, he was asking me, do I believe in the Bible? And I said, I think the Bible is a great book. I think there's so much history and so much to go on, but I think there's parts missing. And he said, well, like
a lot
what?
of metaphors.
A lot of metaphors, just like spirituality is just, there's a lot of metaphors in it. So, and he asked me, he goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, we have, we have fossil fuel. We have dinosaurs. We fill up our cars with gas, but there's nothing in the beginning of the Bible talking about dinosaurs. And he would not talk further with me about that. So I'm not saying that the Bible is wrong or there's the stories, but I think there's so much more that we allow ourselves sometimes to get tunnel vision. About it,
instead of looking at the bigger picture of what the meaning is.
100%. And one thing I tell people about the work I do when I teach, I always say, don't walk away with believing everything I tell you. I'm not perfect. I don't know it all. I'm not a guru, whatever you want to call it. These are my experiences, but take what you want and throw away the rest. And it may
take what resonates.
Right. Did I not explain that correctly? Thank you.
Because I don't feel like people should throw away the rest.
No,
I really don't. And so when you say take what resonates and throw away the rest, I feel like absorb what resonates. And if it doesn't resonate, maybe question it more.
Absolutely.
Look at it more.
Absolutely.
And look at why it bothers you. That's kind of my thought when you say that.
When it bothers you, I think is the key. If you're looking at a spiritual path or opening yourself to that, whatever books you read, whatever people, situations you go to, they are learning as well. So remember that don't take everything on that value. again, like you just said, question it. And when people question, I'm like, yes, because that also makes me go deeper. When someone asks me a question, if I've been believing in something for a long period of time, when I get questioned, it's really good because I get to go a little deeper too and go, well, maybe I have to think about that again. And one of those topics is karma.
Yes, that's a big one for me too.
So in a spiritual belief, a lot of people, say karma, what happens to somebody else, or if you do something bad, it's going to come back to bite
karma
you.
is going to get you.
Karma's going to get you.
Or they deserve their karma coming back, or they deserve what karma's going to give them, or, stuff like that. Yeah.
And there's people in my life that drive me crazy or have hurt me, and I want karma for them, but that's not what I believe. I just say it as a joke.
It's very dogmatic.
It's very dogmatic. What you're saying is someone deserves to be punished, where what you and I believe in, what we teach is that we're here to learn. And so we have people in our life that may cause us pain to learn. And so what is the experience? How do we, learn from that, grow from that? What is our inner guidance telling us? How do we move forward?
When I took your contract class, and at the time you were teaching it, this was like 7 years ago, but at the time you were teaching it as you believe more in Dharma, as in an exchange of energy.
Correct.
But that inspired me to dig deeper into it, because I'm like, we hear about this karma thing all the time, like karma this, karma that. It's an overused word in my opinion. And it made me dig deeper. That's actually when I started digging into the Hindu belief system. And it inspired me to listen to the Bhagavad Gita, which they had they have, the Hindu faith has a very interesting take on karma, which I really believe, which I think, we've talked about.
Go ahead and explain it, because I love the way you explain it.
Well, karma being the law of attraction versus so your thoughts are things. So when we talk about manifesting or the law of attraction, with what you think is what you create, what you think about yourself is what you create within yourself, what you think about the outside world is what you're going to create, etc. Thoughts are things, right?
Correct.
That's what karma actually means in the Eastern.
The old version.
The
original.
Yeah. The Western version is.
We like to change things
dogma
up. Yeah, we
and
do.
punishment.
We do.
Yeah.
Which is
or if you do good, you're going to get good back.
Which we don't see happening all the time.
Right.
So that's why there's a twist to it. But to me, when people want to punish someone with karma, it's the same belief system of religion of, you're going to go to hell, you're going to pay, you're not going to be accepted by God, things like that. So we have more of an alignment with the Dharma. And if that's a new word, it's DHMA.
Dharma and karma.
Karma, yeah.
In the original
version.
meaning.
And these terms are taken way, way back to just like the Bible and Christianity and other types of Judaism, all this, older religions. And as time has changed, all those things have changed. Dogma really and fear came into a lot of belief systems in order to control the masses because humans got a little crazy, right? So there's a fear and things like that continued. And I think there's still so much of that in it, for people to have fear to come see me versus wanting to have the experience and go from there.
Well, I was just going to say too, learning that the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedas were written thousands of years before the newer religions.
Correct.
Before Jesus came into existence and Muhammad and Buddha. And, those belief systems, the karma is actually from
that ancient time.
Time. Yeah. And it's brought forward.
I think going back to ancient times with any faith, a belief system is good. But I also think that our evolution on a spiritual, as a soul, if our souls haven't evolved, but our souls do evolve. And if they've evolved, some of the old teachings are not applied.
They're not,
So, or applicable. So when you look at Old Testament or old verses of any faith, there are things that were applied because of the law of the land or what was happening in that culture. As we've evolved, some, maybe not everybody, but as we've evolved on a soul spiritual lesson or life, things need to adapt to that. And I think that's where I get a little bit irritated or agitated of we're in a new place. And spirituality is more about making sure our planet survives, making sure that there's peace on this planet. I don't know what's going to happen to our planet if we continue the way we're going, but I know that our souls never end. And I think that's the difference of doing the work I do. I don't believe that. I believe the body ends, but never the soul. So what happens to our soul? And that really is everything about our belief system. No matter what faith, religion, if you're, like I said, agnostic, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Hindu, if doing all of this work with testing and with evidence, it's really about what happens to our soul and why we're here. So I think my biggest suggestion all this is really go deep into why you have a faith, or why do you believe a certain way, or what do you think your purpose is, which we talk about in my program. It's what are you here to learn? It's not about what you're here to do as a job, because I think people want to know, what is my job? What does God want me to do? What am I supposed to be fulfilling? And how do we then fulfill our hearts and souls and make a difference? And is your faith helping you support your growth? But I think the biggest thing that I'm getting here right now is, what if you have absolutely no faith at all? I think for the individuals in life that have had such horrible things, and we talk about your childhood, thank goodness you had whatever in your soul that was wired to have a compass to get out of that and figure it out. How many people feel like there is nothing out there? There is nothing for them on a soul level or a soul's purpose. And how devastating that would be to be in that space. I can see your wheels going. So yeah, I think the biggest thing to walk away with for anyone here is figure out what works for you. I think the hardest thing for anyone to question, especially a religious belief, is the loss of family and friends. And that's certainly what's happened to me. But I know that I don't want to live being not authentic, and to change who I am to be in those relationships. I can love them from afar and love that they have a faith for themselves and that they truly believe what they believe and what they're doing is right. But I'm not going to change just to be accepted.
Right.
And I think also your life purpose is an inside job. It's all about what's inside of you. I think every single one of us have our own compass, and we're designed to look at, how do we believe? How do we move forward? What do we want to do? But we ignore that because maybe it's easier. We don't want to be judged. We don't know what to look for. And biggest thing, we don't want to do it wrong.
Say the first part of that again.
Our purpose basically is an inside job.
I love that.
Because it's what's inside. And when something doesn't work, that's where the karma or the dharma that we talked about, you're not receiving in life what you are expecting, because you're really not living to your authentic self. You're living what other people are expecting.
I love that. Great insight.
Well, I think that's how we found each other, no matter what other people say about us. Right? We're here doing it. But also, whether you pray or whether you meditate, whether you do yoga, you're mindful, you take care of the planet, it really all comes down to your love and your kindness to your fellow human being. And I think even more importantly, are you kind and loving of yourself? Because if you are kind and loving to yourself, you'll expect the universe to take care of you and for you to question things until you find the answer that works for you. It's an inside job. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it inspired you. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified of new episodes. And let's get connected. Visit debshepard.com for more insights, support, workshops, and to book a session with me. And finally, always remember, your loved ones in spirit are just a thought away. Even though they're on the other side, they're always by your side.